for me, patriotism has become just a major part of my life.
Dedication to those you're serving with, and commitment to them and their well-being. And I think that transcends whether it's in the military or in your civilian life.
That thread of friendship, that bonding that you do because you go through tough, difficult times together, and also successes, creates a common thread that stays with you all your life.
I was in the U.S. Army, the rank of Specialist Second Class, and served in Korean War from 1954 to 1956. Also, I had 6 other brothers that were in the service. 3 of them were in the Second World War, 2 were in the Korean War, and 2 were in the Vietnam War.
Well, I think one of the things from having been in the military helped me with was just having, some confidence that I was someone that was capable of standing up in front of a group. And I learned as an officer candidate, and then as a platoon leader in Vietnam. I was a first lieutenant, 25 years old, responsible for 40 people, later 40 soldiers. Later I was a company commander, responsible for about 400 soldiers, and it just kind of progressed from there. So I think if you have the confidence that you know what you're supposed to do and you know how to do it, then the size of the group probably does matter somewhat. But to that point, at least I had the confidence to stand up in front of a group and speak out.
I entered the service as a drafted soldier into the U.S. Army in 1969 at the age of 25, at the peak of the Vietnam War. While I didn't serve there, I was on standby, ready to go forward when the call was made.
Leaders learn how to lead by first learning how to lead themselves, and that's a very important theme that good leadership training always starts with, and so we did there. My first couple of years at West Point were very tough in terms of what I was subjected to and endured, and I don't want to overstate it. But that certainly gives you a great appreciation for not only leading but being led, which therefore, I guess the theory goes, makes you a better leader, and hopefully it did in my case. So when I graduated there in the late 80s, as a young second lieutenant in my early 20s, I felt very empowered in terms of leading men and women, not only large groups, but of varying backgrounds, varying ages, varying skill sets, and trying to make a large, diverse group like that a unified whole in terms of achieving our goals.
I served in the U.S. Army in 1957, right after Korea and before Vietnam. Went through basic training at Fort Dix, New Jersey. And while there, I was chosen as Outstanding Soldier of the Division, which gave me the opportunity to become aide to the commanding general. Name was John Heinches, I remember him, big, tall guy, handsome guy, brigadier general. While meeting with him, he said to me, how'd you like to go to West Point? He said, I'll give you 10 seconds to give me an answer. I said, yes, sir, I'd love to go to West Point. I had completed 2 years of college at the time, so I had somewhat of an advantage, and I had been at ROTC in college, so I think that contributed to me being chosen as Outstanding Soldier. Well, as it turned out, I never did go to West Point because I was 2 months over the age limit. It was very disappointing, but be that as it may, I had been transferred down to Fort Benning, Georgia, the infantry school, to continue my advanced infantry training. We finished the training, company shipped out to Germany, and I was left behind. The executive officer came up to me and he said, why are you here? And I told him that I was waiting for orders to go to West Point. He said, you're kidding. Well, that's when we discovered that I was over the age limit. So he said, you still interested in being an officer? I said, well, it's better than pulling guard duty every other night. fortunately, I never had to pull KP. So he said, all right, I'll make arrangements for you to go before the review board, which I did, and I was accepted into officer candidate school.
Navy vet. I served 4 years active duty from 69 to 73, including a tour off the coast of Vietnam. Got out of the Navy, went to the Coast Guard Reserve, spent about 13 years in the Coast Guard Reserve out of the district in Boston, in the Canal Station, Cape Cod. And I decided I wanted to go back in the Naval Reserve, so they took me back in. I was an E5, and I was meritoriously promoted to E6 aboard one of my ships, the USS Valdez. And when the Valdez was decommissioned, I went to my final ship, USS Clark, FFG 11, and I was one of the senior petty officers aboard in the reserve unit. And I retired from the Navy in '94, and I still miss it. I enjoyed every bit of it.
I think in the military you share some experiences that you would not or have not shared in any other aspect of your life. And to that, I mean, that's pretty special.
The 7th day of December, the day 1941, Sunday afternoon, and that was the time we heard over the radio that the Japanese had attacked at Pearl Harbor. Sometime after that, everybody, males, had to sign up for the draft.
And in terms of skill sets, looking back, I found the military to be an extraordinary experience. I had the opportunity to work with some of the best leaders you could imagine. We were always mission focused. We were always taught to work effectively as a team. Never in my life had I worked with a diversity of people from different races, different cultures, men, women, and you had to fulfill a mission when you went out to train. We'd go on maneuvers on a regular basis. And so that mission brought us together because we all knew if we were going to survive in a difficult situation, we had to work together as one. And that was one of the great lessons I learned.
I have a long family tradition of folks who have served in the military before. My grandfather was a captain in World War II and served in Europe. My father was a colonel in the United States Army Reserve, JAG Corps as well, and actually wear his uniform, his dress blue uniform. We're the same size, so it's kind of neat being able to wear his uniform, and so I'm always proud to do that. And then my brother Chris was a recently retired colonel in the United States Army, served 4 tours in Afghanistan, and was an advisor to our most senior military and political leadership over the last number of years. So really a proud tradition of service, and that's what kind of got me into serving as well.
Oh, on the way over, the ship started to list to one side, and it was in a convoy, and it dropped out of the convoy. This is about the tail end of the submarine warfare in the Atlantic, I guess, luckily, because we're in the ocean all by ourselves. And they got us on abandoned ship stations. So that was the first real bad thing that happened.
So there is a mechanism through the chain of command that is fluid in terms of if something is not going right, that input can go up the chain of command and people can respond and adapt. And that's one of the great things of the U.S. military. There's an adaptive leadership style that flexes depending on the situation at hand, that enables it to overcome what appears to be a negative situation, that because of the input and the mechanisms built into the chain of command at all levels, that there can be a better response to accomplishing the goal at hand.
We just kept moving every day, digging foxholes at night. And it was a situation, if you got through the night, then maybe you'd get through the next day. And
So we came to one place, and it's time to. We'd gone as far as we were going for that one day, and we were pulled into a place that had a little cover, a little embankment, and we commenced to dig a foxhole for the night, and a machine gun opened up, and you could see the bullets hitting the dirt in front of you.
One of the things I learned is the first thing to do is respect. That's a very, very important thing. The other thing is to obey orders. And the other thing is to conduct yourself in a gentleman manner and be considerate of other people. That's one of the things I did learn in the service. As far as skills on the outside, when I got out, I really didn't learn any skills in that capacity. But what I did learn is to follow orders and to do what I was told to do, which meant a lot in my life later on in life.
The spring of 1966, I was out of school and Vietnam was going on. I got drafted. And after a number of years went by, I often said what I considered one of the worst days of my life, which was the day I got drafted, also turned out to be one of the best ones because I enjoyed the military. It gave me an opportunity to get trained in many ways and have experiences that I never would have had otherwise.
What carves, as you say, a great leader is other great leaders that show them the way. And so I had incredible examples as a young cadet and as a young lieutenant.
They shipped us home on a converted Liberty ship, I believe it was, because it was all rusty, falling apart. Not out of Busan, but the capital of Korea, whatever it is, Seoul. And we didn't go up the gangway, and I don't know why they made us climb up a cargo net, like the same way you got off the ships. I hated that. I was always afraid I'd fall down between the boat down below and the big ship.
Would I have liked to have been a career officer? Yeah, I think so. I think so. I felt that I was on a fast track, and probably, I don't know, who knows, but I ended up going through Ranger and Airborne School while I was going through, or during the OCS situation down at Fort Benning, Georgia.
One of the ways that you deal with stress in difficult situations is through humor. Oh, I just remembered one. We were on maneuvers in the middle of the field. It was temperature was in the hundreds. Everybody had full combat gear on, and we were in maneuvers out in Montana on a 30-day exercise. And one of the breaks we had, and nobody knew this except for a few, one of the soldiers had brought his pet goldfish with him. If you can imagine this, he's carrying in his rucksack of sea rations a little packet with his 2 goldfish. Well, sadly, one of them died. Believe this or not, and of course this was an off time, we had a full military funeral for this goldfish in the middle of the woods, 200 guys. And if you've seen it done on TV, it was almost a complete mock-up of what one of our fellow soldiers might have received.
About a company commander that gave a directive to a private in the company. It's almost like a Beetle Bailey story, where he told the private to go around the post headquarters and trim the shrubs. And the company commander gave the private a set of shears, and he walked away, and he came back a couple of hours later, and the private had cut all the shrubs right down to the ground, which clearly wasn't what the company commander had intended him to do. And I think the guy knew it. He he just knew he could get away with cutting them to the ground and not having any. I mean, he was already a private.
And I didn't know this. My last name, Kolenda, is a word in it's either Swahili or the local language, but Kolenda means strong. And unfortunately, it means strong. It's pretty funny. And so when I arrived, people would say to me, "You Congolese?" And they would look at my face and they'd say, "You Congolese?" You know, that's Congolese. And so when I would train the troops at the end, I would go, "Kolenda," and they would all stand up and go, "Kolenda."
In other words, our helmets turned from brown to blue. Blue meaning that you are now a senior candidate, you were allowed to walk, you no longer had to eat square meals. Oh yes. You were only allowed to sit on the first 12 inches of your chair in the mess hall, etc. We were then accorded, as a blue top, all of the privileges of being an officer without having the commission. My class started 180. Only 90 of us graduated. We had a 50% dropout rate.
I got to fly in the Falcon, which is one of the Coast Guard surveillance aircraft. And there was a sailboat that had lost its engine off of Boston Harbor, and they couldn't contact them. So we went on station, and 5 minutes after we got on station, I was looking out to the starboard side, and I picked the boat up from about 5 miles away. Nobody else on board the plane had seen it, and I had to radio into the captain. He says, "You sure you saw it?" I said, "Pretty sure I see something out there, sir." And he banked the plane over, and there was the boat. And then there was a husband, wife, and 2 kids on board the boat. And they couldn't hear us, but we could hear them on the radio. And I could just remember them saying, "I don't know if you guys can hear us up there, but boy, it's great to see you." And so I'm getting emotional over that. It was a great feeling. That
After leaving Saipan on a ship, we were heading for Okinawa, and that's where we learned that President Roosevelt had passed away.
I'm grateful that you're taking time to do this because it's important to pass on our heritage in this great country of ours. I feel fortunate that I'm a part of a family that has served in almost every major conflict since the founding of this country. So it's been an honor for me to serve and to give back to our nation and my community.
In 2008, was activated to go to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, where I served from 2008 to 2009 in Baghdad with the 18th Airborne Corps, and conducting a rule of law mission for the U.S. military, and served mainly in and around Baghdad, but also traveled to places called Taji, Balad, and Basra. Did a lot of training to our troops about rules of engagement. We discussed detention operations, and so it was a pretty very interesting mission. I dealt a lot with Iraqi judges.
Following that, it was active from there on out, because we got the 2nd Battalion took the town of Yanaburo, and there was a big hill part of the town called Chestnut Hill, and the 2nd Battalion had pushed the enemy off that hill, and they moved on, and the next night we camped on top of Chestnut Hill. It was muddy. It started raining. There was an awful lot of mud. And I remember sitting in the foxhole that night with the rain, feet were in water.
I've said the Gettysburg Address on Memorial Day. I recited it twice in the past 10 years. So I did it when I was in the 6th grade. In the year 1944, I recited the Gettysburg Address. And then John one year said, the school has stopped doing it. So I said, John, I said, I'll do it for you. So for 2 years in a row, I did it. And then I convinced them to get the school to go back and do it, which they did. And I also recite the Flanders Fields.
There's always a resource. There's always somebody doing something that will be willing to help you learn how to do the same thing or to develop the same skills, and you just have to seek them out.
I bleed gray, haze gray, because the Navy is still such a part of me. I mean, the clothes I wear, my hats, my truck, my garage. I'm the only house, I bet you I'm the only house in Southborough that has a porthole in their basement. And that's a fact.
And we couldn't do our mission without the support of our families. So they in themselves are veterans. They are a part of this family that enables the military to succeed. So when they go off to that difficult mission, whether it's war or peacetime, they're going, know that their backs are covered, that their families are supporting them, and the community is supporting them. You can't believe what it's like to walk downtown and hear the applause or the acknowledgement or the appreciation for your service. And it enables us to go forward. But we also have to be mindful of those who are not with us anymore and who have served.
Whether it's family or your work, everything is done as a team. No one's here by themselves. We all got here through the help and support of others. And I think a leader's job is to, and that's what the Army trains you to, hey, recognize your role, where you're at, how you got here, and help, everyone else come along. There's a great book called The Mission, the Men and Me. And the mission's first, along with your men and the women who serve, and then you're last.
I fly the flag all the time. I love going to parades. I used to march in a lot of parades, but I love going to parades. And my children and my grandchildren respect that fact, and they too have become very patriotic in their lives as well. The discipline that I learned in Officer Candidate School has stood me in stead. The organization abilities that I've learned.
Well, if I talked about that, it would probably be more in a negative form than a positive form, because it bothers me that the people do not respect servicemen the way I feel that they should. And I'll give you, for instance, on Veterans Day, we had a little parade. It was not so much of a parade, but it went from the community house to the War Memorial at the 11th of November. And there were the Boy Scouts there, and we had a little parade. But if you took the Boy Scouts away and you took the veterans away, there was probably a handful of townspeople, probably 25. And to me, that was very, very disappointing. Where I spent 17 months in Korea, and no one in the town could spend 1 hour at the War Memorial. That really bothered me. So yeah, I was very happy for the Boy Scouts, because they did come, and a few people that came. But the majority of the people did not respect the veterans that day.
As difficult as it might have been to serve in various places and be away from home for long stretches of time, to a person, every one of them is glad that they did serve. And, we all had different experiences, but I think every one of them is proud to be able to say that through one circumstance or another, whether if they get drafted like I did, went to West Point like some people did, enlisted, or went to college or went to ROTC, that they still hold that as one of the things that they've done, that they are glad that they did.